Some people say the truth sets you free. What they leave out is the part where you have to sit on the truth for 3 weeks while your wife rehearses her cover story on the plane home, and you smile at dinner and help your kids with homework and act like a man who doesn't know a single thing. That part. They always leave that part out. My name is Randy Logan, 42 years old, custom home builder, Raleigh, North Carolina, North Hills neighborhood. The kind of man who gets up at 5:30 because the job site doesn't wait, drives a truck with sawdust on the floor mats because that's what honest work looks like, and built the back deck of his own house with his own 2 hands over 4 weekends in June because he wanted his wife to have the porch she'd talked about for 3 years. The porch. I think about the porch a lot now. My wife's name is Claire, 39, real estate agent, the kind who hosts open houses in Blazers and sells homes that other men build. We met in 2009 at a mutual friend's backyard barbecue in Cary, where she laughed at something I said about lumber costs, and I thought this woman is going to be trouble. Married in 2012. 2 daughters, Paige, who is 9, and Lily, who is 7. A 4-bedroom colonial on Brentwood Court that I built the deck of. A life I had not one single complaint about until 11:47 p.m. on a Friday night in September. That's when Claire's phone called mine. She'd gone to Scottsdale 3 days earlier for what she described as a girls' trip, 4 days with her 3 best friends from college, the kind of trip that had become an annual thing over the past 6 years. Spa days, wine tours, pool days, the usual. She'd been excited for weeks, had a new swimsuit, had a new pair of sunglasses I didn't ask the price of because I am not that kind of husband. I kissed her goodbye at the airport on a Wednesday morning, drove home, made the girls pancakes, and got on with my week. I trusted her, completely, unconditionally, the way you trust someone after 12 years of marriage when they have never once given you a reason not to. Which is why what happened on Friday night at 11:47 felt like someone had reached into my chest and rearranged everything inside it. My phone lit up on the nightstand. Claire's name. I picked up. Glad she was calling, because she'd been harder to reach than usual since she landed. The first thing I heard was a laugh, not her laugh. A man's laugh. Low, easy, the kind of laugh that comes out of a person who is completely comfortable with where they are and who they're with. Then a voice, clear as anything. Stop. You're going to drop it. Hand it back. Then Claire's voice, closer, lighter, a tone I hadn't heard her use in a while. I'm not going to drop it. Relax. Music from somewhere further away. I sat up in bed. I didn't hang up. I reached over to the bedside table, picked up my work phone, the second line I use for job sites, and hit record. And for the next 4 minutes and 22 seconds, I listened. I didn't hear everything, but I heard enough. I heard his name. I heard her say it, low and close. A name I didn't recognize. A name I was going to know very well in the coming weeks. The call dropped at 11:50. 2. I set my phone down on the nightstand. I sat in the dark of my bedroom on Brentwood Court in Raleigh, North Carolina, and for about 45 seconds I did something I hadn't done since I was 11 years old, and my father told me he was leaving. I just sat with it, the weight of it, the specific nauseating weight of something you can't undo. And then I went to the kitchen, made a pot of coffee, sat at the table, and started making a list. I didn't know yet what was going to be in the manila envelope. I didn't know yet what my attorney was going to say when I called him Monday morning. And I absolutely did not know yet that Claire was going to walk back through that front door in 3 weeks with a tan, new earrings, and a story so carefully rehearsed that she'd clearly been working on it since the moment the call dropped. But I knew one thing. I was going to be ready. The thing about being a builder is that you understand the difference between reaction and preparation. Any man can react. You drop something on a job site, you react. You look down, you assess. You swear if you have to. Reaction is automatic. It costs nothing and it means nothing. Preparation is where the work is. You read the plans before you pour the foundation. You measure before you cut. You build the structure before you hang anything on it. I had 3 weeks, so I prepared. Monday morning at 8 a.m., I was sitting across from Aaron Briggs in the conference room of his family law office on Glenwood Avenue, 3 miles from my house. Aaron and I had gone to NC State together, had stayed loosely in touch the way men do when they end up in different professions but still run into each other at Wolfpack games. I knew he was good at his job. I just never imagined I'd need to know that. I need you to start preparing, I told him. I don't know yet what I'm going to do, but I need the documents ready. Aaron looked at me over his reading glasses. He had the expression of a man who has heard this sentence before and understands exactly what it means. How certain are you? I recorded 4 minutes and 22 seconds of audio. Enough to know his name. Enough to know this wasn't the first time. A pause. I'm going to ask you something and I need you to answer it straight, Aaron said. Did you want to try to save this marriage? Or are you here to end it correctly? The hands I'd built the deck with. I'm here to end it correctly, I said. He nodded. He opened his laptop. And he got to work. Welcome back to Sweet Family Revenge. Grab your snacks, get comfortable, and remember, the people in these stories had every chance to behave themselves. They just chose wrong. Drop a comment and be sure to subscribe. You're going to love it here. The next 3 weeks were the most disciplined I have ever been in my life. And I say that as a man who once framed an entire house in 11 days because the client needed to close on time. Paige and Lily didn't know anything was wrong. That was the primary objective. The girls stayed in their routine. School, soccer practice, dinner, bedtime. I made their lunches. I helped Paige with a book report on the American Revolution. I watched Lily's soccer practice on a Thursday afternoon and hollered when she scored. Because she scored, and she's 7. And she was proud, and I was not going to let what was happening to me steal that moment from either of us. Claire called every night, cheerful, warm, present in the way of someone who has decided that enthusiastic contact is the best camouflage. She told me about the spa, the pool, the wine tour to a vineyard in Sedona, a sunset hike where one of her friends had worn completely wrong shoes and they'd all laughed about it. It sounds like you're having a really good time, I told her. The best. I miss you guys, though. We miss you too. Every syllable of that conversation was a performance. Hers and mine. The difference was that mine was intentional. Aaron worked fast. By the end of week 1, the separation agreement was drafted. By the end of week 2, I had spoken with my accountant, a precise woman named Janet Foss, who had managed my business finances for 6 years, about the structure of my contracting LLC. What I had not told Claire because it had not come up, because I had always managed the business finances separately. The LLC had been restructured 18 months earlier on the advice of Janet and Aaron working together as part of a standard asset protection plan. The business, currently carrying 14 active contracts worth approximately $2.1 million in total value, was held inside a family trust. My salary drew from it. The equity did not sit in my name as a personal asset. Janet looked at me across her desk on week 2. She's going to think the business is marital property, Janet said. I know. It isn't. I know that too. Janet closed her laptop and folded her hands. Randy, how long have you known? 18 months ago when we restructured was a precaution. I paused. This was 2 weeks ago. She was quiet for a moment. I'm sorry. Thank you, Janet. By the end of week 3, I had everything. The separation agreement, the asset documentation, the LLC trust structure, the recording, time-stamped professionally transcribed by a legal transcription service Aaron recommended, and attached to a document noting the circumstances under which it was obtained. And one more item which I'll tell you about in a moment. Claire's flight landed on a Saturday afternoon. She texted me when she was in the Uber. On my way. So excited to see you all. 3 exclamation marks. She'd counted them. I called Paige and Lily downstairs, told them Mom was almost home, and watched them plant themselves at the front window like 2 eager retriever puppies. She doesn't deserve those girls, I thought. And then immediately, that's not the point right now. Stay on the structure. The Uber pulled up at 6:47 p.m. Claire came through the front door with her carry-on and her new earrings, small gold hoops I hadn't seen before. And the girls launched themselves at her and she scooped them both up and laughed in the way of someone who has genuinely missed her children. Because she had, and that part I believe was real. She looked up at me over their heads. Hi, she said. Soft, warm. The full performance. Welcome home, I said. I smiled. I carried her bag upstairs. I made dinner. Pasta, garlic bread, the girls' favorite, and we sat at the table together and Claire told them about the pool with the waterfall and the smoothies and the sunset hike and the friend with the wrong shoes, And Paige and Lily laughed in all the right places, and I nodded and smiled and refilled Claire's wine glass without being asked. After dinner, I put the girls to bed, read Lily her chapter, checked Paige's homework, kissed them both, came back downstairs. Claire was in the kitchen loading the dishwasher. The manila envelope was on the kitchen counter, exactly where I'd left it that morning, positioned so that it was the first thing visible when you walked into the kitchen from the hallway. "What's this?" she said, her back still to me. "Open it," I said. She turned around. She looked at the envelope. She looked at me. I had not raised my voice. I had not changed my expression. I was the same man who had carried her bag and refilled her wine glass and smiled when she came through the door. She picked up the envelope. There is a specific silence that happens when a person opens an envelope they weren't expecting and finds exactly the thing they should have been expecting. Not a gasp, not a cry, just an absolute, total held breath stillness, like the moment between a bolt of lightning and the sound that follows. That's the silence Claire made when she opened the envelope. She went through it item by item. Not fast, carefully, the way you read something when you're trying to find the part where it stops being real. The separation agreement was on top. She read the first page, set it on the counter without flipping to the second, picked up the transcription document, read the header, read the timestamp, 11:47 p.m. Friday, September 12th. Duration, 4 minutes, 22 seconds. She looked up at me. "Randy." "Keep reading," I said. She looked back down. Her hands weren't quite steady. She got to the name. I watched her face. There was a moment, brief, involuntary, where her jaw tightened. Not surprise, just the specific expression of a person who has been caught and is rapidly recalculating everything they thought they knew about their position. She got to the last item in the envelope, a single sheet of paper that was not a legal document and not a transcript. It was a photograph. I had printed it on standard copy paper because I wanted it to look like what it was, evidence, not drama. The photograph was from the hotel's public-facing Instagram account, a tagged photo from a conference held the same weekend at the same Scottsdale resort. In the background of the photo, out of focus, but identifiable, was a man and a woman at a poolside table. The man's face was visible. The woman was Claire. She set the photograph on the counter. She didn't say anything for a long time. "The girls are asleep," I said. "We can do this quietly, or we can do this loudly." I strongly recommend quietly. How long? Since 11:47 on a Friday night, 2 weeks and 4 days ago. I've been waiting. "Randy, please, Aaron Briggs has prepared the separation agreement. You need to retain your own counsel before you sign anything. That's not a threat. That's advice I'm giving you, because it's the correct advice." The specific crying of a person who knows they are not in a position to ask for anything. "I can explain." "You can't," I said, quietly, not cruelly. Just accurately. "I listened to 4 minutes and 22 seconds of your phone. You said his name twice. That is not something that can be explained." The kitchen was very quiet. Lily's nightlight was visible under the upstairs hallway door. "I love you," she said. I looked at her for a long moment. "I know you think you do," I said. "Retain counsel. I'll be in the guest room." If you've been listening for a while and want stories like this to keep coming, it really helps if you hit that like button and subscribe. 97% of people never do, but it's what keeps this whole thing running. So, thank you for real. The first call Aaron Briggs received on Monday morning was not from Claire. It was from Claire's older sister Dana, who had apparently been informed of the situation via a phone call the previous night, and had opinions she wanted to share directly. Aaron's assistant told her professionally that Aaron could not take calls from non-clients regarding an active matter. The second call was from Claire's mother, Brenda, who called my personal cell and began with, "Randy, I want you to know this is not like her. She's never." "Brenda," I said, "I love you. I have always loved you. Please don't do this." A long pause, then quietly, "I'm so sorry, Randy. Thank you. I'll make sure the girls still see you regularly. That won't change." The third call was from Claire herself, from her own phone at 11 a.m. on Monday, 20 minutes after I dropped the girls at school and returned to my home office. "I need us to talk. Not through attorneys. I need to talk to you, Randy, just us." That's not something I'm willing to do right now. Why not? Because anything you say to me outside of a documented legal process currently gives me no protection and gives you no protection. It's not the right way to do this. You sound like you're running a job site. I know, I said. I've been building things correctly for 20 years. I'm not going to stop now. She didn't have an answer for that. I could hear her breathing on the other end. The specific sound of a person trying to find the right lever and realizing they've already used them all. The girls, she started. The girls are fine, I said. They went to school this morning. Paige had a quiz. Lily asked me to braid her hair and I did a terrible job, and she told me I needed to practice. They are absolutely fine. Randy. Retain counsel. Claire. I hung up. I didn't feel victorious about that. I want to be clear. There is nothing in any of this that felt like winning. What it felt like was laying a foundation correctly. Knowing that the thing you are building will stand even after you are not there to hold it up. That is not victory. That is just work done right. Claire retained an attorney the following week, a family law specialist named Greg Hayworth, whose office was downtown on Fayetteville Street. Greg called Aaron the same day he was retained. Aaron told me about the conversation with the kind of professional understatement that lawyers develop after years of delivering uncomfortable information. Her attorney made a reference to the business. Aaron said, I expected that. He's going to argue the LLC should be treated as a marital asset. And? He's going to be wrong. But we're going to have to prove that, which means Janet will need to provide the trust documentation and the restructuring timeline. She's prepared. I know. I spoke to her this morning. Aaron paused. Randy. Claire's attorney also mentioned that she may seek to argue the recording is inadmissible as evidence and potentially legally problematic depending on North Carolina law. Is it? You were a party to the call. The recording is clean. I thought so. You checked before you recorded it? I Googled it at midnight while I was sitting at my kitchen table making the list, I said. Another pause. I could almost hear Aaron trying not to say something complimentary. You're going to be fine, he said. I know, I said. I built the structure. I just need to trust it to stand. The part of the story that gets harder to tell is not the legal proceedings. The legal proceedings were, in their own way, a relief, a system with rules and timelines and predictable outcomes, which is the only kind of system a builder genuinely trusts. The part that is harder to tell is the morning I walked into Paige's room at 6:15 to wake her up for school, and found her sitting up in bed already, looking at the door. Dad, she said, are you and Mom getting divorced? 9 years old. Old enough to feel the weather change in a house even when the adults think they're keeping it quiet. I sat on the edge of her bed. We're going through something difficult, I said. And we're working on making sure that whatever happens, you and Lily are safe and loved, and your life looks as normal as possible. That's what adults say when the answer is yes. I thought, this kid is 9 going on 40. Yeah, I said. That's what adults say when the answer is yes. Paige looked at me for a long moment with those eyes that have been too serious since she was 4 years old. Are you okay, Dad? I will be. Promise? I put my hand on top of hers. I promise, I said. I didn't know yet what the next chapter of my life was going to look like. I didn't know yet what the financial settlement hearing would produce, or what Judge Renata Hayes of Wake County Family Court would say when she reviewed the trust documentation. And I absolutely did not know yet that the man from the Scottsdale resort, whose name had been spoken twice on a 4-minute accidental phone call, was going to make a decision that would restructure the entire remaining proceeding in a way nobody expected. What I knew was that I had promised my daughter I would be okay. Promises made to children are the only ones that can't have exceptions. Justice, in my experience, doesn't arrive the way it does in the movies. There's no dramatic moment in a wood-paneled courtroom where everyone gasps and the villain's attorney puts their pen down in defeat. Real justice is more like a well-built house. It looks inevitable once it's standing, but only because someone did the measurements correctly before they touched a single piece of lumber. The financial settlement hearing was scheduled for Monday, October 20th. By that point, the separation agreement had been through 4 rounds of revision. Janet Foss had submitted the LLC trust documentation to the court, and Aaron Briggs had filed a formal response to Greg Hayworth's argument that the business constituted a marital asset. The trust document was filed July 11th, 18 months before the proceedings. The restructuring predated any specific marital incident. The business equity was not in Randy Logan's personal estate, It was held by the Logan Family Trust, with Randy Logan as grantor and trustee, and two named beneficiaries, Paige and Lily Logan. Greg Hayworth, to his credit, was thorough. He challenged the trust on three grounds: the filing date, the intent, the relationship between Randy's salary and the LLC's overall performance. Judge Renata Hayes, a compact woman in her mid-50s who ran her courtroom with the unhurried precision of someone who had seen every variation of this maneuver and was not impressed by any of them, reviewed the documentation during a 40-minute recess. She came back and delivered her ruling in 7 sentences. The trust was legally executed prior to any marital dispute. No evidence of fraud or concealment had been established. The LLC business equity was not marital property under North Carolina law as structured. The separation agreement would proceed on the basis of liquid marital assets, the joint accounts, the joint retirement, and the marital home. The marital home would be listed and proceeds split equitably. Spousal support would be calculated based on Randy's documented salary from the LLC, not the LLC's total contract value. Any further challenges to the trust structure would require a separate proceeding with new evidentiary standards. Greg Hayworth made one more attempt. Judge Hayes looked at him over her reading glasses. Counselor, the document was filed 18 months ago. Unless your client has evidence that Mr. Logan had knowledge of the specific events in September at the time of the July filing, I'm going to ask you to move on. If you've made it this far, do us one quick favor. Subscribe. A lot of people watch without ever doing it, but it costs you nothing and means everything to us. Thank you, genuinely. I want to tell you about the man from the Scottsdale resort, because he matters to this story, and because the way he entered the proceedings is one of those things that sounds too precisely calibrated to be real, but is exactly as real as everything else I've told you. His name was found through the hotel's conference booking records. Aaron identified him through a process I'd rather not detail here, but which was legal and thorough and took about a week. He was a residential developer from Phoenix, 45, divorced, no children, who had attended a Southwest Regional Developers Conference at the same resort the same weekend. His name had appeared in the hotel's public conference attendee list. He had not known Claire was married. Aaron's investigator confirmed this through a fairly straightforward source, an email exchange between him and his own attorney in Phoenix, retained after the Scottsdale events, in which he made repeated reference to his shock at learning the full situation. He had believed, apparently, that Claire was recently separated, a detail she had provided, a detail that was not true. That information arrived in my attorney's hands through a parallel legal process I won't detail. What matters is that it arrived. When his attorney contacted Aaron to discuss the situation, Aaron called me. He wants to know if you're pursuing any civil action. I'm not. He wants to apologize. I was quiet for a moment. Tell him I'm not interested in an apology from him. I'm not angry at him. He was told a lie by someone he trusted. That's not unfamiliar territory. A pause on Aaron's end. That's generous. It's not generosity, I said. He didn't betray anyone who trusted him. She did. Those are different things. The Phoenix attorney called back once more, 2 days later, with one additional piece of information I hadn't known. Claire had told him, at some point during the weekend, that she had plans to leave the marriage. Not that she had already left. Not that there was a process underway. Just that she had plans. I filed that information in the back of my mind alongside everything else. Plans. She had plans. She had gone to Scottsdale with plans. And she had come home to a kitchen counter and a manila envelope that had moved faster than her plans. The divorce was granted on a Friday afternoon in late October. The marital home went on the market November 3rd. Claire moved into a rental in Midtown Raleigh. The girls stayed with me on Brentwood Court through the end of the school semester, per our custody agreement, primary school stability provision, Aaron's recommendation, approved by Judge Hayes. The business carried on, 14 active contracts. Good work. Correct measurements, nothing built that would have to be torn down and rebuilt. And the porch. This is the part I come back to. I built the back porch of the Brentwood Courthouse myself, 4 weekends in June. Pressure-treated lumber, composite decking, a pergola overhead that Claire had picked from a design magazine and circled in pen. I built it because she wanted it, and because I was good at it, and because building something for the people you love is one of the most honest things a man can do with his time. On a Saturday morning in early November, Paige and Lily, due at noon, The house on the market but not yet sold. The last few weeks of the only home my daughters had ever known. I went out to the porch with my coffee and sat in one of the chairs I'd set up before the listing went live. The yard looked good. The pergola was solid. The composite decking wouldn't need replacing for 30 years. I thought about the man from Scottsdale. Thought about whether I was angry at him. Decided I wasn't. He got lied to, too. I thought about Claire, about the kitchen table conversation, about the held breath silence when she opened the envelope, about 11:47 p.m. and 4 minutes and 22 seconds of a life I hadn't known I was living. I thought about Paige saying, "Are you okay, Dad?" I thought, I built this porch for the wrong reason. I built it because I thought it would make someone happy who had decided a long time ago to be unhappy with me. I thought, the next person who sits on this porch will love it. They'll put their coffee cup down on the railing I set exactly level. They'll watch their kids in the yard. They'll think someone built this carefully, and they'll be right. That's enough. Lily arrived at noon with her soccer bag and a drawing she'd made at her mom's place. Crayon yellow house, green yard, stick figures. Dad, Paige, Lily. 3 figures on a porch. "That's us," she said. "On our porch." "That's us," I said. I put it on the refrigerator with a magnet shaped like a football, because it was the only magnet I had. I stepped back and looked at it. I didn't know yet what the next house would look like, the one I'd build for us after Brentwood Court sold. I didn't know yet what the next chapter looked like, specifically, but I knew it would have a porch. I'd know how to build it, and this time, I'd build it for the right people. Lily tugged my sleeve. "Can we have lunch?" "Yeah," I said. "What do you want?" "Grilled cheese." "Obviously." She beamed. "I made grilled cheese. Some things you build. Some things you rebuild. The difference is just in knowing which is which."